quick an introduction here in just a few minutes. We're going to get started. It's going to be a lengthy presentation. I apologize for us being a few minutes late.
I was told to grab the mic, so here we go. Yeah, just a special thanks to especially the principals and all the school administration that worked with us on this. We walked every building in the entire district. You know, we've heard the number around 7.5 million square feet, 76 locations. I think we're talking about 74 schools today. So a lot of legwork went into this report, a lot of evaluation, and just excited to get it out today.
Got a full crowd, which is great to see. I'm going to echo what I heard the mayor and Dr. Johnson talking about with the word preliminary. Can't emphasize this enough. This is a preliminary look, and that is very deliberate. Over the coming 5 months leading up to December, we'll be going out and talking with stakeholders and talking to community members, giving everybody a chance to weigh in with their thoughts on what's good and what's bad and how we can make it better. Okay, and that includes everybody here. So I really want you to take that for what it is intended to be here. This is a preliminary look. It is the beginning of a conversation. Demographic and enrollment forecast. Here's where we're going to start. And for those of you who are not detailed people, this is where you might start tuning me out. I ask you to bear with me. I really want to show you where we come up with these conclusions, how we've built the foundation for the kinds of things we're talking about. Some things that we've observed. First couple here won't be any surprise. Growth is expected in the east, growth in population here, not enrollment, growth in population. Also in sort of the central west, the Signal Mountain area, there's areas that you see growth. Population in the north, have a little more of an infrastructure issue, water, wastewater, enabling development to happen. Growth is going to be a little bit slower until some of that infrastructure comes into place. Okay? And then we believe that enrollment will continue to increase district-wide over the next 10 years. So I'm going to hit some maps here. Hit these with a little bit faster, but I want you to just kind of key in on the colors. When we're talking about total population number change, the blue is a decrease. The red is increases in population. This is total numbers, not percentage. Some of these are going to be percentages. Those are in shades of green. Okay. Population age. Overall median age has gone up, so it's a population that's getting older. When you look here, we're really comparing each one of these cohorts within the cohort. The dark line, that's the 2010 census number, to the light blue line, which is the 2017 Census Bureau estimate. Older age groups growing is the major observation drawn from this. Live births. The question is, what's the relationship to kindergarten enrollment today relative to live births 5 years ago? That's what this chart is doing, okay? You can tell it tracks pretty well. It is a great tool then for planning for future enrollment. Okay, so the next series of maps is about racial structure, the distribution of different races within the district. The darker green show higher areas of percentage concentration. This isn't numbers, this is percentage concentration. So the dark green here, this is for the white population all up through the north and into the southeast, down the southwest. If we compare that to black population, Hispanic population, a little bit more dispersed, a little more out to the west along the ridge, the mountain line, a little bit more out to the east. Still heaviest concentration percentage-wise down in the south central part of the district. And then other races, that catch-all category. The racial configuration doesn't necessarily have a direct correlation when it comes to enrollment forecasts, but it does help us when we're thinking about the impact of decisions we're making with schools. Foreign-born population, immigrant population out to the east, along the south. Getting into some economic factors. Household median income here. Median home value. Owner-occupied housing, predominantly up in the north and then the southeast and the southwest, not in the south central area. Unemployment. Again, percentage-wise, highest area of unemployment down in the south central part of the district. some pockets up in the north, and some light green scattered throughout, but really they have a south central area. Bachelor's degree or higher, trying to measure the education level of the folks within these different block groups. This is all U.S. Census data. Households with children, always debate whether to put this here or put this up with enrollment. And it's interesting, with all the talk about growth in the East, this area that pops up in the Central West, maybe not as much of a surprise. This actually gets reflected pretty strongly in the schools in that area that have some increasing enrollment. Private school enrollment, in terms of percentage of private school enrollment, darker green being a higher percentage. This is census data. We didn't make phone calls to see what numbers were at the various schools in the district. There's a lot of information packed into those maps and the charts. It all helps feed our intuition of what is really happening in the district. What are the dynamics for the population? And what does it mean when we're making decisions about different types of schools? Okay. What does it mean when it comes to enrollment? How does that factor in? Well, if we start to pull apart historical enrollment, we know that it's been 5.5% enrollment increase over the last 10 years. Pretty steady too. That's a pretty easy slope going up over the last 10 years. Also, take a look at housing. This is based on permitting. Okay? So permits over the last 10 years, we couldn't get for last year just yet when we pulled the data, but the number of building permits, single family, multifamily. And what does that mean if we think about the total number of permits over the last 8 years and what that might mean for a forecast? Okay, now, recession hits somewhere out here, that'll all change. But for planning purposes, we need a number based on historical trends on what that might mean. Okay. When we get into our enrollment forecasting models, one of them looks at the number of students per household. This forms the base for that model. So let's talk about those models. Historical enrollment off to the left, scaled a little bit differently so that you can see a little bit tighter. Off to the right is an illustration of our 4 models and then our ultimate forecast. And they draw from different perspectives and slice and dice the data in different ways. The weighted average of those 4, that's our enrollment forecast number. So let's talk about capacity and utilization. Capacity is a decision, not a definition. We really need to slap a trademark on this. Capacity is a decision, not a definition. So if you think about capacity in terms of the square foot per student, that's good for designing a building. It's good for the fire marshal. How you use a building, that's what determines its capacity if it's a school, right? It's the number of kids in each classroom, it's the type of building, the way you are programming that building. We're going to flesh that out in much more detail. Grade configuration factors into that as well. High school is different from elementary school. We really need to think about how we're using that building. And so when we sent our assessors out into each one of the schools, one of the things we did was to count instructional spaces. We counted up the number of general classrooms, the number of science rooms, the number of art rooms, et cetera, so that we knew how that building was being built, how it was being used. What does that mean for utilization? This is comparing enrollment to the capacity. Elementary grade band, your lowest utilized school is 51% utilized, half empty. Your lowest middle school is 50% utilized, 53 and 55 for middle, high, and high. At the elementary level, 128% is your highest utilized elementary school. That's a pretty full building. Right? Kids are sitting on top of each other in that building. 104% for the middle, 87 for the middle high, and 115 for the high. I'll let you peruse the rest of those numbers. Red can mean either really full or really empty. A sweet spot, 80 to 95% is where we want to be for planning purposes. You don't want to be 100% utilized, gives you no flexibility. That brings us to the end of the enrollment, demographics, capacity, and utilization. We've been asked to have a hard stop here for a break. And so we're going to do that. We'll come back and talk facility assessment data when we return.